Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Santa podcast here on the Monkey Caviar Non-Existent Podcast Network. I am Tiny, your host, and with me, as always, Adam Levy. Adam, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great, Mike. How you doing?
I cannot complain. That actually the weather is taking the slight turn towards fall here.
Nice.
So it's the 90 degrees are just about over. And
yeah, it's been cooling down a little bit out here too.
We had 3 days without humidity, and it was wonderful.
Nice. Yeah.
Paradise.
Yeah, the humidity is kind of tapered off a little bit out here, but there's supposed to be more coming soon.
Yeah, the humidity died down, and it got to like 64 one night. And it was just it felt so good.
Nice.
But hey, that's summer in the South. What are you gonna do?
Exactly.
All right. Well, let's get to this finale. Well, okay. Now, if you're gonna end the season, that's cool. It's a good season finale. If you're gonna end a series, possibly, it could be worse. At least we get some closure if this series never comes back. I hope it does. But you never know.
Yeah, I mean they left it open at a good spot for the story to continue. Clearly, not everything is wrapped up. You know, there are still major storylines to finish, but they wrapped up pretty much everything for this season in this last episode, and you know, I'm satisfied with the way they, for the most part, with the way they wrapped up most everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like Claire fell off a Ferris wheel and put her arm back in and said, "My name's Claire, and I'm a," that cliffhanger to end the series on.
Yeah,
God, still burns my ass. Still burns me the way they destroyed Heroes.
Yeah, I hear you. And the revival wasn't that great either, but
no, the writing on it was so poor. They made it so unwatchable that when it went off the air, we all went, "Yeah, okay."
Yeah, nobody expected after that half season. Nobody expected another one.
Okay, but Preacher, on the other hand, has delivered in spades. If those spades are not comic book spades, they are TV show spades. Because if you're looking for a genuine, straight up comic book adaptation, you're not getting it.
No. So they give you moments, they give you little bits and pieces of the comic book just to remind you that, hey, for those of you that have read the book, you know, we haven't completely forgotten about you. You know, here's a little scene, here's a little tidbit, you know, just to kind of tide you over.
Are you going to be happy if they take this same kind of track with the boys?
No.
Okay. Yeah, that one's got to stick a little more to it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like it's I don't quite get how you can adapt a set story, a story that has a beginning and an end, and completely throw out everything and kind of make your own rules and story. Well, you know, I get that
but I guess they haven't, because they're following the comic along. But they gave us the first season that was a prequel kind of thing that wasn't what we expected. The second season, some of it is out of the comic, but very little. And in the third season, we got a ton of comic book drops in it. I gotta say, best season of the bunch. I mean,
it's definitely a lot better. It was definitely a lot better than second season. Like, I absolutely hated the second season.
I know you did. And we might be lucky that we didn't get to podcast as much through that, because you really hated it.
I mean, this season, I would say redeemed quite a bit from last season. You know, I definitely enjoyed this season a lot more because it was more out of the comic book. So we did have, you know, there were elements that I recognized, and, you know, storylines that were true to some of the original stuff. But
right, at least we saw Jesse sitting in a coffin at the bottom of a lake. At least we get stuff like that. It's straight out of the comic. So that's cool. And I like this episode, the way it started with the young Jesse, and like God and the devil just showing up in his life, just like they're just chilling and part of it, because nobody's got nothing better to do than deal with Jesse Custer.
I mean, what really makes me wonder, though, I mean, is it kind of like the idea of, you know, the angel and the devil on his shoulder, or was it more along the lines of, are God and the devil really, really looking out for Jesse? Is there something about Jesse that both sides really want?
I think it's both. I really do. I think in the context of what we saw, obviously he left the bat on the bed when God was in the room, but when the devil's in the room, he went and got the bat.
Yeah.
So, he was going to kill Granny. And I very much liked the right before the credits when old Jesse passes young Jesse and says,
that was a great little scene.
Killed her. He goes like, "Well, now's your chance."
Yeah. Yeah, that was a great little scene. I mean, just that, the past and the present colliding, I really enjoyed that.
That was super cool. And then we get to see Jesse roll into the house with Genesis for the first time. So this is kind of exciting, and him and TC getting a little exchange about TC.
Well, TC's like, you got to go through me first,
Right? TC pulls a gun on him, and Jesse's like, "No, I'm not having that. Give me the gun." And he says it like twice in his normal voice, and then finally Genesis takes over and guns out of his hand, and now
I love TC's that look on TC's face. Yeah,
it should be a meme. It's so good. It's like, everything you find out in life, when you find out there's no Easter bunny, that's the look.
Yeah, the actor that played TC, I thought, did a great job in this season.
And here's the thing: is that TC has been and forever will be Clint Howard in my book.
Yeah,
because in the comic he is very much drawn to look like Clint Howard.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like in the comic book, TC, there was nothing redeeming about TC. TC, nope. You hated TC as much as you hated Jody, as much as you hated Grandma, Hair Star, and the Grail. Like he was, straight up just completely hateable. But in this show, this series,
comic relief.
Yeah, he's comic relief, but he's also been likable.
Yeah, he's been the most likable from the bunch from Angelville for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they did a good job of making people actually kind of enjoy the character. He wasn't this like completely perverted piece of crap that wanted to have sex with everything that he could find. You did get a little bit of that, but
a little bit,
But they also there
was that scene a couple of episodes ago where
the petting zoo.
There's a naked guy in the petting zoo, and they're like, "We're busy right now, guys. It's TC." They turn around to go back.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely humanized TC a lot. They even did it with Jody a little bit. There still was nothing really likable about Jody, but they, at least if you're gonna have a character that be around for the entire season, you can't have him be a complete piece of shit for the entire time. You kind of got to make him, somewhat decent, but still hateable.
You do, but at the same time, they gave Jody superpowers in an episode, and only for one episode.
Yeah.
Like, he can lift a car with one hand, and then he gets in a fight in this episode with Jesse, and if you can lift a car with one hand, I can safely assume you punch like Thor.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, one punch to like cave Jesse's face in,
Right. So, unless, you're fighting Peter Dinklage as a giant, and then the whole world just skew.
Oh, the dink.
I watched that again this week.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to break this episode down into the storylines because jumping back and forth is just going to get too much.
Confusing. Yeah, that's fine. Let's do that.
So we're stuck in Angelville, so let's finish there. He goes through TC, and then Jody pops up and is like, literally says, "Well, you're going to have to go through me." And he's like, "Yeah, let's go to the tombs."
Yeah. Yeah, so Jesse's been waiting for this. I mean... And, again, they didn't really go into too much detail as to why Jesse really, really hates Jody. We know he killed his father. We got that this episode. But, growing, like, we didn't see, like, when we saw, like, little glimpses of younger Jesse in the past, like, we never saw Jody being that complete bastard to him. The guy that just, was beating his ass and all this stuff like that. We never really got that. So all we really know is that, Jody killed his dad. Right. But we never
we got more of the psychological and physical torture that Jesse went through.
Yeah, so and they cut a lot of that out.
More understandable. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, but I mean, from the first episode, you can tell that there was unfinished business between the two of them when they had that fight the first time.
Yeah, well, they did. They talked about it going at it once again. We're gonna do this again, and it's gonna be different.
Yeah. I mean, this is technically the third time they fought this season. There was that, when Jesse and Tulip fought Jody and TC in the bedroom. That was the second. So but they didn't really show much of that fight.
Yeah, they kind of skimped us on that one.
But we know it didn't work out in Jesse's favor.
I like that when they get into the tombs that TC's got the Jesse's hat on, and he's doing the whole rigmarole about you goat hump and motherless. I've always wanted to do that.
Yeah, and again, I liked that. I like seeing TC, finally get his moment in the spotlight.
You were giving him some love. He was having his moment. I agree with that. So they fight it out, and it's a good fight. And here's the thing about the fight: Jesse doesn't use Genesis in the fight.
No,
he fights him straight up, puts his head into a wall a few times. There's a lot going on. It cut to this fight like 3 different times. It went on forever. And the Jesse came out of it unscathed to deal with Grandma.
Jesse got, he took a few licks. Jody threw him into a wall a few times. There's a few punches here and there, but Jesse definitely had the advantage going into that fight. I don't know if it was maybe the confidence that that Genesis was there that instilled him with some more confidence, even though he never used it. But like I was telling you,
it was time. It was time. He'd been waiting so long that it was.
I was telling you before the show, there was one scene in that fight that was taken straight out of the comic book. When Jesse finds, Jesse grabs that piece of wood with the nails in it and like smacks it right into his face, and then Jody pulls it out and it's like, well, that was different. That was word for word, shot for shot, right out of the comic book, except the location. They were outside when it happened. But yeah, I mean, that was a nice little thing. And even in the book, like, I loved how the fight started in the comic book. Like, Jesse walks out and Jody's there with a bunch of other like ranch hands, and immediately uses the word, just tells them all to burn, and everyone catches fire. And then
I remember that. Okay.
And at the end, when Jesse's finally got the better of Jody and he's choking the life out of him, he just like screams like "fucking die," and with Genesis, and Genesis kills him.
Right. So,
but I mean, Jesse clearly had him beat there, anyways.
Right, and it was a good fight. He put his head into the wall, scrambled his nuggets so much that he got up, walked around it for a little bit, and then went back down.
Yeah. And another part of the fight too, again, this goes back to something that was thrown in for the comic book fans but never ever explained, was the lighter. At one point, Jesse drops his lighter, and Jody's like, "Oh, I was looking for this," but they never explained the significance of the lighter. He said he took it from his dad, but why would his dad have had the lighter? I don't get it.
But again, we're dealing with a different time than the comic is set.
Because it wouldn't make sense because
Vietnam.
Yeah.
So we like R's face can't be in Kurt Cobain.
No, I mean maybe the lighter was Jesse's grandfather's. Who knows? I mean they're not going to give us that. I don't think so either. But they could have set the time at the start of the start of season 1. They could have set the year, and they could have done everything that they did in the comic. But they chose not to, and put it in the modern day. And then the modern day Vietnam doesn't work for his dad. Nirvana doesn't work for R's face. So exactly,
that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because we're gonna miss R's face being a rock star, and I think the world needs that. I think the world needs that.
Yeah, I'd love to see that storyline play out in the show,
but I don't think it's gonna.
No, probably not.
So in the tombs, after he dispatches Jody, it's time to burn up the tombs and Jody, and TC's just like, you know what? I'm just gonna hang out. I'm going with it.
Yeah, like TC just like he tells us he's like, I got nowhere else to go. This is my home. This is all I've ever known. And if you're gonna destroy it, you might as well take me with it.
I mean, I think Jesse would have let TC live and killed Grandma and Jody, and he might have been okay with that. But
well, yeah, I mean, he offered to let TC leave the tombs after he brought him the gas. He's like, what are you still doing here? And he's like, well, I got nowhere else to go. I mean, I felt bad for TC at the end of that storyline. I mean,
really do.
Like I said, I really liked TC as a character. They made him entertaining, and they definitely put a human spin on this character instead of just from what I know of him from the comic books. But to see him just, I mean, like I said, this was all he's ever known. They never really explained it in the show, but like Jody and TC pretty much spent their lives serving Miss Marie. That was all they ever did. So So you don't really have that in the show, but when he says this is all I've got, this is all I've ever known, you realize, that this is the extent of his life.
Do you think they did a better job with TC or with Hugo Root?
TC.
Oh yeah, all right. I liked it, but I loved Root.
Well, I liked Root too, but I wanted more of the comic book Root. I wanted that real hard ass, just really ridiculously racist Hugo Root. Yeah,
but I miss Earl Brown being on the show. Well,
I do. I understand. I totally miss him too. I thought Earl Brown was great as Hugo Root with how they wrote the character. He was great, amazing. But yeah, I mean, I kind of wanted more of that really hard ass character.
I understand that. Earl Brown is also amazing on Twitter, and he's dropping Deadwood spoilers all over the place.
Nice.
Not spoilers, just little nuggets it's all happening. It's gonna happen. It's really gonna happen.
Nice.
Some of us have waited a long time for a Deadwood movie.
Yeah.
I have. I know the boy is gonna be very excited.
I actually never watched that show.
Everybody from Casablanca watched Deadwood.
So, I'm not surprised.
No, we love that show. It was great. All right, so back to Jesse's. So once the boys are dispatched, it's time to take out Grandmama, and there's a really funny bit where they do the text messages between Jesse and Tulip. It's like, hey, what you doing? I'm about to kill this guy. What are you doing? I'm about to kill Grandma. BRB. And then she just sends back the thumbs up emoji.
Yeah, that was very entertaining.
Yeah, that was good. So Jesse walks in the house and he drops Genesis straight on her, man. He gives up the set me free, set Tulip free, and then he makes her take all the souls that they stole in Tokyo, and she has to chuck them in the fire.
Yeah, she was. Yeah, I mean. Yeah, he just went straight at her. I mean, there was no, he wasn't going to give her a chance to do anything, because I mean, she was holding his handkerchief. She could have easily just messed him up right there had he given it a shot. And I think he knew that. I think he realized he had to go in there guns blazing, or else he was going to get fucked up.
So he took that straight down. Kristen was watching. She's like, "Oh, that's harsh to use the voice to make her do that." And I'm like, "You should have seen what he did in the comic, The Hoover."
Yeah, I mean,
because he made Hoover count grains of sand on a beach, and that's a time-consuming gig.
Yeah, he made him count up to 3 million grains of sand, and it took the better part of a couple years.
Yeah, so they didn't even kill Hoover off in the comic, did they? Not until the end, anyway.
Not to the end. Yeah, he died in the end.
Yeah, but you got an early exit in this one, but we'll get to Hoover here. Let's finish with Grandmama. So he straps her to her own machine.
Well, before this, she lets him know about a little deal that she made.
Well, it's with the devil, right?
Yeah, where she, and here's the thing I don't understand is how can she barter with somebody else's soul that's not her own? I mean, I don't quite get that. Usually, if you're making a deal with the devil, it's for your own soul. But she was, she was
kind of weak.
Yeah, she offered up somebody else's soul, and the deal was that if Jesse killed Grandma, he'd go to hell when he died. And so that gave Jesse pause. He stopped for a second, and I was actually thinking that he was gonna, keep her alive, but he locked away. Basically give her all those souls. I think he said if she'd have taken all those souls, she might have lived another 100 years.
Right.
And. So. I almost thought for a second there he was gonna basically keep her alive to save his own soul. But then he thought about it. It's like, you know what? No, I can't do it.
Not that bad. Hell's not that bad. And it turns out, spoiler alert, there's gonna be a new devil in hell by the end of this episode.
Yeah, there's a change in management.
There's a definite change in management. So she ends up with the on the suck machine. And she turns to dust. Poof. She's gone.
He sucked out her whole soul.
That pretty much takes care of Jesse's side of this story.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. Who do you want to do, Tulip or Cass?
Let's do Tulip next.
All right, so Tulip is on the bus to hell with Eugene Hitler, the Saint of Killers, and the Angel of Death, which is a fine traveling companions. If you're ever
that's like a modern day Fellowship of the Ring right there.
Absolutely. If you're going to do a road trip across America, first I recommend Adam Levy as your co-pilot. And, well, no, don't do that. And then this group here would be fun too. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, yeah. So we start off with the bus on its side after having hit the IED last episode.
The IUD. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that. All right, we move on.
That was completely. I wasn't making funny. That one slipped out of my own. You've got the German Panzer, and the new SS Sergeant Rick.
Sergeant Rick. They use another great song here
of Greta Van Fleet, right?
Greta Van Fleet, yeah, Highway 2. Great song.
Yeah, I mean,
people asked me what Led Zeppelin song that was, and I was like, no.
That's not. No. I mean, they do have a Zeppelin-esque sound to them, but yeah, they're not.
Oh, for sure, 100%. I've heard like 4 or 5 songs from him, and he sounds like Plant 100%. They sound like Zeppelin 100%. But
yeah,
I'm super digging him. I want to see him so bad, just because it's like back in the '90s when I heard Nirvana for the first time. Mm-hmm. Like if you, I don't remember, how old were you in '91?
God, I was
12-ish,
yeah.
Around there. All right, might have hit you, might have different. I was like 20. All right.
Yeah.
And the time before that, in the late 80s to the very early 90s, was dark time musically. If you look it up, it's dominated by just awfulness. Like Belle Biv DeVoe, shit like that. It was awful.
I know.
It was the R&B time, and like rap wasn't. It was NWA and things like that, but it wasn't mainstream enough that the white kids could dig on it.
Yeah.
So I was just going to the clubs, and it was awful. And then I heard Teen Spirit, and it was like paradise. It was like, oh, there's rock gods again.
Yeah.
And Greta Van Fleet makes me feel that way. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, Highway Tune's the only one of theirs I know, and I dig that song. It sounds amazing. It sounds like it's out of place in this time period. It sounds like it came out of the 60s and 70s, during that rock period, but it works nowadays. I mean, it still works now.
Would have fit on the Thor Ragnarok soundtrack.
Yeah. But see, as far as the music selection goes for this episode, I mean, normally, like, this song, like, definitely lends itself to the fight. It's got that beat, and it's got, just the tempo. Whereas, like, all the other times they've chosen a song, it seems very out of place in the fight scene. So this is the first time they've chosen a song that really fits the scene.
Yeah, this was a very up-tempo fight, so a very up-tempo song for the fight. And it was a nice fight scene. I loved all the jumping around on the bus chairs and the kicking back and forth. It was great.
Yeah, Tulip fighting 2 Nazis, Arseface and Hitler fighting, the Saint and the Angel of Death against the Nazis.
So it moves. I don't even know why it moves outside. Like, they get everybody on the bus done, and the tank shoots and fires at the group, and the bullet stops mere feet away from Tulip with one of the worst fire effects I've ever seen.
Well, a lot of those the effects, like when the Angel and the Saint were shooting everybody up, like all that shit there looked really just cheesy fake.
They didn't do some of the effects. May have taken aside.
They'd blown their budget at this point.
They were running out of money. It was getting late.
Yeah.
But it was all exciting. And then there's this big pause in the middle of the fight where God and Tulip have a nice little chat. And it was too random for me.
Well, I mean, it's in the Angel storyline in the book, Tulip died, and God brought her back with the message they tell Jesse to stop searching for me. I'm a merciful God. I brought you back to life. Tell him that he needs to stop a search. And that's kind of what this was here. They didn't since they used the voodoo aspect to bring her back initially, they needed, to have that conversation between, Tulip and God, where he's warning her for the first time to tell Jesse to back off. And to be fair, like throughout the last 2 seasons, the search for God has pretty much been non-existent.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
So God showing up now to say, hey, tell him to stop, it just seemed kind of random because they haven't really talked about, Jesse on his mission. Unless God knows that now that Angelville's wrapped up, that's his next task, is he's going back to his original goal.
There's so little of that, and that was such the driving force of the whole story in the comic. It has kind of gone by the wayside in the TV show, and it has more become about like Jesse versus Hair Star. But like you're not real sure what the prize is.
Yeah, I mean, like even in the comic book, like the whole search for God thing kept getting sidetracked. Angelville sidetracked it. New Orleans was a diversion. I mean, now granted, some of these things were for Jesse to learn about Genesis and about what it knew. To get the memories out of, to share the memories that Genesis had as to why God left and why the saint was the way he is and all this like that. Again, something else they haven't really delved into about the saint and Jesse sharing memories with this being. But yeah, I mean that's where a lot of that was but there were a lot of diversions throughout the course of the story too. It wasn't all Jesse just looking for God. The Grail kept interrupting things and all the stuff. So I mean, while that was the main part of the story, it wasn't the main story.
But the comic always kind of kept you reminding you that they were looking for God. And I don't think the TV show is doing that.
No, not really. So I mean, God showed up more often than they've actually talked about the search for God this season.
That's true. And I don't remember God showing up that often in the comic. It was only very few times.
I can think of like 4 times off the top of my head that he showed up in the comic books. He showed up after Tulip died.
God rolls around on this Harley with his concubine and just seems to show up everywhere.
Yeah. He's all over, Louisiana at this point right now, it seems.
The dog suit God.
And he mentioned something about he had plans, which I don't, again, I don't understand because this isn't something that was ever addressed in the comic book. He was just running from heaven because, there was a being on the loose that was just as powerful as he was. And he was, he was kind of afraid of it.
The devil has plans for expansion. There's all kinds of plans that we don't get to know about. So we don't know what anybody's doing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of frustrating as far as the God and the devil portion of that goes.
Exactly. I agree with you on that one. Yeah. I mean, if they're gonna set these ideas into motion, they should at least expand on a little, give us at least a little bit of something, what God's plan is and, how the devil's planning to expand and why. I mean, I didn't realize hell had a capacity.
I didn't either. That would be that's an interesting, maybe that's an interesting comic in itself, an overpopulated hell. And what do you do with it?
Yeah.
There you go. So the bullet that was intended for the group is turned backwards towards the tank. Kablooey, and the Cena killers, of course, unscathed.
See, I thought the bullet just missed, and the tank blew up because of the Saint. Yeah, because it was leaking gas, and then he's got heat breath apparently because he just blew on a knife and it became super hot.
Right? When did that happen? That was like
seriously.
I was like,
I saw that. I'm like watching that. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here?
Wow, incredible! If you're gonna give somebody superpowers again, clue us in before they use them. Yeah. Otherwise, it's just like even Superman, they were like, look, he's trying to fly before he flew.
Yeah.
You can't just
yeah, you watch the first couple seasons of Smallville and they're explaining like each power like pops up randomly, like he's got to learn how to control it. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, I can see through things now. Holy crap. But yeah, like all of a sudden, like they did Santa Killer's like some really bad breath.
Is that what the first couple of seasons of Smallville? I thought it was an Allison Mack recruiting video.
Ouch. Damn. That's savage, man.
Whatever. I didn't join a fucking cult.
That story still.
You deserve my ridicule. I'm sorry. I don't
like
Scientologists either.
That still baffles me.
That's crazy, right?
It is. It's ridiculous.
We got to talk one night. We'll talk on the podcast about how much I love wacky cults. And like for a while when I moved out here, I thought I could be the leader of one because, you know, I don't want to step on the intelligence of my fellow Southerners. However, stereotypes become stereotypes for a reason.
This is true, and you're charismatic enough that you could get some people to follow you.
I mean, hey, I do panels at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
I haven't read a comic book in 15 years. So,
yeah.
I mean, you know, whatever. I had a great time, but, you know. But no, I haven't started a cult because I just don't have enough land.
Yeah, you do need a compound.
Yeah, if I had a bigger patch of land, I would already have a compound. Yeah, it would work. But hey. So the Santa Killer's with his heat knife.
Yeah.
After it blows up a tank, he uses it to gouge out the eyes of the Angel of Death.
Yeah, I mean, she was fucking with him the entire trip. You know, kept bringing up like the crows eating his daughter's eyes.
Yeah, oh, that was rough.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing you want to do to the Santa Killers is make fun of the death of the only two people he loved in his life. You know, and the fact that he had to keep reliving that moment over and over and over again in hell for hundreds of years. It's going to be a touchy subject.
It is. And they showed so much compassion with the Santa Killers, especially in this episode. Like, he feels for Ars, like Ars doesn't belong in hell. And so, you know, he wants to take him out of there. And, like, I'm so not used to the idea of a Santa Killers with emotions.
Yeah.
Like,
because we're used to the Santa Killers as the Angel of Death. You know,
it was one and the same.
Yeah. You know,
so I did like that he, you know, pecked her eyeballs out, and then Satan gives her a bunch of shit more like, ooh.
Like, you probably earned it. You probably deserve that. Yeah.
Yeah, you probably deserved that. So anyways, they go to hell, and there's a big to-do down there, and Ars tries to convince the devil to just let go and let God.
Yeah. Yeah, Eugene, like he thought he'd found his purpose there is to reform the devil. Yeah.
I now know what every Mormon that came to my door on a Saturday morning felt like. They were Ars-faced in that one moment, and I was just Satan looking back at him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know,
for souls.
If you're gonna aim high, you know, you can't aim much higher than trying to redeem the devil.
And you know what? If you get that one, that's got to be like the best get conversion of all time.
Seriously, if you could retire at that point,
the devil into loving God, I get into heaven for free.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you could retire.
Full admission and redemption in heaven. Did I ever tell you my joke about heaven and transportation in heaven?
I'm not sure if you did or not.
All right, so there's these three guys, and they all die, and they go up to heaven, and they're standing at the pearly gates. And the guy goes up, and St. Peter goes, "Look, welcome to heaven. You're here. Your mode of transportation is based on how faithful you were to your spouse." And the first guy's like, "All right, well, I was a pretty good guy." And he goes, St. Peter goes, "You were a good guy, as a matter of fact. You know, here's keys to your Cadillac." It's like, "Thanks a lot, man. That's great." Cruise in. Next guy goes up and he goes, "All right, well, I'm not getting a Cadillac." And he goes, "No." St. Peter says, "No, you're not getting a Cadillac, but here's a nice beach cruiser." He's like, "Hey, it's a bike, but you know what? It's two wheels. I'm good." Third guy walks up. St. Peter looks at him and he goes, "Well, you know you're getting a skateboard, right?" The guy's like, "Oh, yeah. I was a horrible dick." So he takes his skateboard and he rolls inside the pearly gates. And he's sitting there and he's chatting with the guy with the bicycle, and they look over and they see the guy in the Cadillac crying his eyes out. So they walk over there and they're like, "Dude, what are you crying for? You got a Cadillac. I'm on a bike. This guy's got a skateboard." The guy in the Cadillac goes, "I just saw my wife on skates."
Oh, jeez. Oh, that's fucked up.
Yeah, so that's my version of heaven. Is transportation is based on faithfulness.
There you go.
Great joke. All right, so so he tries to convert the devil. That's a bad plan.
No,
not gonna work. So the Saint of Killers is like, give me my guns, and he's like, sure, you earned them. Here, you brought these two assholes back here, and he gives them his guns. And
I love that they're still wrapped from when they got rid of him last season.
Right, still in the same packaging
with the stamps and everything.
Gets his guns and cocks the hammer back, puts it in Satan's head.
Yeah, he
gonna pull the trigger, right?
Yeah, he he wanted to know what part Satan played in, the death of his family. Right. And again, this is another big divulsion from the comic books. The Satan had nothing to do with the Saint of Killers. Absolutely nothing to do with what happened to him and his family and what led him on the path of becoming the Saint of Killers. Absolutely nothing to do with it. But and there's he's like, yeah, I wasn't on the meeting. He's like, but that was all God's idea.
Yeah, okay, and I think what they're doing here is just we're playing with a different Satan here. He's more flippant. He's a little loose.
Yeah,
and because they set that up, they need him to be a little more, hey, come on.
Yeah,
and so I think that's where it comes from. I don't think it's just bad storytelling on their part, but it's not great. But
no, but then and this also removes another big storyline from later in the story. Where Jesse promises to let the Saint know what happened to him in return for the Saint leaving Jesse alone. Because Genesis Genesis had the memories of all this stuff. So, Jesse found out that, that it was God that put all of this into motion, and that's when, the Saint decided that, God was going to be his target. But right. Now the devil's kind of taking care of that storyline. The devil, he basically says, it was God's idea. I was there for the meeting, blah, blah, blah. So now they've let the Saint of Killers know that, it's God's fault that all this stuff happened to him.
Okay.
So we can remove that element.
As the literal devil's advocate, if you're on this show and you're a producer, you see the ratings, that if you get one more season, and you've got to wrap it up for the fans, the quickest way to wrap it up is to give, if your end goal is the same as the comic, is to give these Saint Killers a reason to do that.
Yeah.
And now we have that. He has a reason to go after God and put a bullet in God.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to have to be handled differently because, when the Saint was the angel of death, he had access to heaven, as just a dead soul who was trapped in hell. I don't think he's going to have that kind of access. He's not going to be able to get to heaven to beat God there.
But we're going to have to deal with God on earth because I don't think we're going to heaven.
No, probably not.
So I can definitely see all that. If you're going to wrap it up in one more season, you can get there. You can get to the end from here. So I understand the changes.
Oh yeah, no, I get it too.
Like I said, characters are what they are, but this definitely puts us on a path towards the end.
Yeah, and I was like I said, since they haven't really dealt with Genesis and the memories, this takes that whole storyline out of it. They don't have to worry about trying to get Jesse to remember what Genesis knows.
Right. So
and at the end of the episode, they introduced another mechanism that's going to cut some of that stuff out too. We'll get to that at the end, though.
They did.
Yes.
Okay, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, when you go to the very end of the episode, yeah.
Marion. Oh, okay. So that wraps up Hell, and that leaves us with Cass, right?
Well, so the Saint did put a bullet in Lucifer's head.
Oh yeah, I forgot the usurper.
Yeah, and then takes Eugene and leaves Hell to go search for Jesse, and Eugene's like, oh, we're going for Jesse Custer. He's like, all right, yeah, let's go. Eugene's all on board hunting down Jesse. He's like, he left me in Hell. He trapped me here. He left me here. Yeah, I'm down to go find him.
And David Hilter,
Yeah.
Employee of the month is the Robert
seizes a golden opportunity right now.
Road of Hell. Yeah, so he takes the throne of hell, and the angel of death is like, "Yep, I serve you now."
Plum cake.
Yeah, plum. That's how it works. You sit in the chair, you get the power.
Guess so.
So I guess that time that they found Littlefinger sitting in the chair. Never mind. Littlefinger's dead. One of my questions in my trivia was, who do you trust least? Littlefinger. It was Littlefinger or like, did I say Snape? Malfoy? I don't know. That's somebody. It was a horrible choice.
Littlefinger.
Right, so,
yeah.
I liked Cassidy's story in this episode. I liked how they wrapped up the whole vampires in the New Orleans situation. And basically how it goes is he's crucified still on the pool table, and Icarius is giving him a bunch of, these long-winded monologues like Icarius does. And
I love this peace offering.
Which was, I'm sorry, go remind me.
The pipe.
Oh yeah, the pipe was shaped like a unicorn. It was cute.
Yeah. And I like when he's trying to explain how to use, like, you put the drugs in here. He's like, I know how it bloody works. What's it for?
Just use. So I don't even know how they get to the blood ceremony again.
Well, Icarius, Icarius feels he's redeemed Cassidy. Like, Cassidy's, on board with Les Enfants, and he's gonna stick with Icarius and, create more vampires and kill them so we can get his powers as like Icarius had. And he comes up and says, "Hey, Cassidy's back with us. Blood ceremony to celebrate."
Cool. Who's ready?
Yeah.
And Grandma's hand goes up.
Did not see that one coming.
I didn't see it coming either. So shockingly, they go to the blood ceremony. Grandma's laid out on the table. No cookies around at all. See what happens when you put Granny on the table? No cookies.
Yeah. I loved how they he's like, are you okay with a threesome? And she's like, yeah.
Yeah, she's down. Granny's cooking with gas. And so Icarius goes to do the deed, and there's a little problem. Problem is she ain't got no blood, Lieutenant Dan.
She's already been bitten.
She's already been bitten. And who done that biting? But Cassidy did the biting.
Yep. And in the last episode, when Cassidy asked her to call some of the traveling vampires, apparently,
how many calls did you make? And she said 28. How many answers did you get? Zero.
And apparently that was enough for her to see, what Cassidy was saying wasn't complete bullshit.
Right. So he says, "Oh yeah, I turned her, but she turned the rest of them."
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite bits. Was that Granny was the mastermind? Like, yeah, right on.
And how quickly the tables were turned on Icarius there.
Quickly turned. So he's laid out on the table, and it is a feast for vampires.
Yeah, they all got a piece of him.
Literally. They chow through him, and all is good with the world. And Cassidy in his Nixon now more than ever shirt.
I love that shirt.
Great shirt. He is sitting on the throne. He's using his unicorn pipe, and in walks in a very gothic looking Hoover.
I love Hoover in the black lipstick and all that.
Hoover, like a true Disney goth, comes bopping down the stairs with a smile.
Who's ready to party?
Who's ready to party? Giving out gifts. Here, have an umbrella. And Cassidy doesn't want to open it in the house because, it's bad luck. He's like, not this time.
Yeah. Well, I love that. Like, the vampires are like, so what now? And he's like, I don't know. Like, they're all looking to him for guidance. Like, what do we do now that we're all vampires? He's like, I got nothing.
Yeah, you're a vampire. Be a vampire. He doesn't know. He's not their leader.
No.
So then all of a sudden there was a rumble tumble, and the house gets lifted off of the house, off of the basement,
off the foundation. Yeah.
Yeah, and all so Cassidy and Hoover, safe under their umbrellas, survive a basic.
Ella.
A Oh, I can't believe you got me with that. You.
I couldn't resist that one.
That was a good one. That was a good one. My mouth was open. You got me.
Yeah, I mean, and like I love how you see like under the umbrella, you see like little bits of pieces, like people catching on fire and turning to dust right there on the floor.
Right, it's like a hellscape going on outside, and so yeah, all the vampires are toast. And I love that they do a little flyover with the helicopter with the rest of the house on it.
Yeah,
it just like flies over the bay and just drops
and drop it.
But while they're doing that, there's like 3 or 4 humperdoos walking around.
I love that. And then Cassidy gets hit with the trank, and he turns to Hoover. He's like, I eat horse tranquilizers for breakfast, right? And he's like, yeah, that's a whale tranquilizer. And he's like, oh, good.
Yeah. So the Grail takes our dear friend Cassidy, and that's where we're going to leave him, right? They didn't do anything else with that.
Well, we see him at the very end.
We did. Okay, I'm going to fast forward to the very end. Oh, I'm at the very end. Masada, right?
Yeah. So I guess all we have really left to talk about is Hairstar and Masada.
All right, so yeah, to wrap it up, we arrive at Masada. You haven't seen Masada yet. None of us have.
We never even saw it in the comic books.
No,
I think we saw like an underground chamber, but we never really saw any of Masada in the comic books. It was only ever mentioned.
Is basically the headquarters of the Grail.
Yeah, it is their major seat of power.
And we did see Cassidy in. There's an angel in the cell. Chained up in the cell.
Well, Cassidy's chained up at the bottom, and you see them lowering the angel at the top of the well, wherever it is that they have Cassidy in.
So let's bring back Fior. Wouldn't that be great for season 4?
And see, this is what I was talking about earlier. Is the other little device to get around the whole memory thing is the angel. In the comic book, the angel was how the Grail knew what was going on in heaven, how they had all this information because they had that angel trapped, and the angel was answering all their questions for them. So they can use that as a story mechanic to get some plot and exposition out of the way because the angel should have all that information.
Right, so we'll probably see some angel torture next season.
Yep.
Super fun.
Well, and another kind of throwback to the comic book too is when Hoover asked like what they're going to do with Cassidy, he's like, "Oh, I've got my favorite torturer coming in from New Jersey," yeah, and the guy Frankie the eunuch from the comic book who just spent like issues shooting the shit out of Cassidy.
So that'll be fun.
Yeah, especially if they get some of the Frankie back. If Frankie tells some of his backstory about him getting his nuts cut off. Actually, no, he got his dick cut off. If they kind of tell some of that story, it'll be funny.
Yeah. So what we learn about Masada here is that it's well armed, it's well staffed.
Yes,
they have lots and lots of people. They have helicopters galore.
They've got jet fighters.
It's cut into the side of a mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a place like that. They use it in Indiana Jones in the Last Crusade.
Last Crusade, yeah.
There's a bank that was carved into the side of a mountain, and I don't think it's like Israel or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I mean, like Masada kind of looks like what La Sainte Marie should have been. I mean, from the comic books, it was kind of built into a mountain there. But yeah, I mean, for the sake of the story, we don't need to have both places. We can just have one. I mean, the comic books, they went to La Sainte Marie. In the show, they're going to go to Masada. 6 of one, half dozen of the other. They're still going to tell the same story.
Right. Same things will happen. And that's where we get left.
Well, we forgot Hoover.
Oh yeah, Hoover. So
I love Star's like, he's like, "What's with the hat? Are you making fun of me?"
He's got the rainbow hat,
like, the little umbrella hat, yeah.
Oh my God, I love it.
Star thinks that Hoover's mocking him because he can't wear hats.
Are you making fun of me? And he's like, "No, man, I'm a fucking vampire." And
he's like, "Oh, he's like, you were serious about that? I thought you were joking."
Right. So he flips the hat off him, and Hoover burns. And then he tells Featherstone, "We got to get another Hoover."
I was sad to see Hoover go out like that.
I was too. I liked him.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Hoover was fun. I mean, Hoover is definitely like the weakest link in the Grail. But he was entertaining, and we're not going to get I don't think it's going to go that far, but we're not going to get my favorite, Hoover hair star moment anymore now.
Which was what?
The report that Hoover typed up after he come back from counting sand, and Star's like shooting the report with his gun because like he used quotation marks for emphasis on headings. That whole scene like that, when Star's like, he's like, yeah, he's like, what quotations are for? He's like, if I were to call you an illiterate, fucking sodden rag, you'd write, hair star, comma, with his usual searing insight, comma, today referred to me as open quotes, and just write the whole thing down. That scene is still one of my absolute favorites from the comic book. That scene cracks me up every time I read it.
But you never know. We can get a clone Hoover.
Yeah, this is true. Maybe they had been cloning Hoovers. We don't know.
Maybe that'd be great. But I don't know. Let's hope we get a 4th season so we can figure it out.
Yeah, hopefully we'll find out in the near future.
If not, yeah, well, hopefully we'll figure it out if there's a season. If not, hey, at least we got Walking Dead coming up in October.
Yes, we do.
Rick's gonna die. Yeah. That means he get his pickle out of Mama Shown. I'm gonna get an artist to do Rick's grave, and I'm gonna have it back here behind me. It's gonna be fantastic. Just gonna be Carl pissing on it.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have let me die, Dad.
It's gonna look like that, like those Calvin stickers you see on the back of Chevys, where it's like Calvin pissing on the Ford logo or something.
Absolutely, it's Negan and Carl pissing on Rick's grave. Speaking of The Walking Dead, so Fear the Walking Dead has introduced a couple new characters. They are twins, and they are played by Mo Collins. If you're familiar with her work,
I know the name, but I can't.
Yeah, she's a comedian. She's been around. Did you watch that '70s show?
A little bit.
All right. Well, when Bob remarries,
okay,
that's Mo Collins.
All right. Okay.
All right. She's very thin now. She's very trimmed down, but her twin is Daryl Chill Mitchell, and Chill Mitchell, who was in Galaxy Quest, he was the black guy.
Okay.
Obviously,
he was Tommy.
Yeah, he was paralyzed.
Laredo was what it was.
Yeah, he was paralyzed like in 2008 in a motorcycle accident here in South Carolina, and he's been in a wheelchair ever since. And his character is in a wheelchair, which is kind of random for the apocalypse.
Yeah,
and, they said they're twins, and Mo Collins and Joe Williams are very different looking people. And so one of the producers for Fear was on Talking Dead doing one of the bits, and he goes, "We just want to assure everyone that they are truly twins. They're related. They're actually related. It will be explained." So yeah, it was an interesting concept for characters.
Alrighty.
Yeah, go Fear. Fear's doing really good. I like Fear. You should watch it.
Maybe one of these days I'll catch up.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm catching up now, so I'm on Sons of Anarchy finally. So
nice. I just finished binge watching Man in the High Castle.
Yeah, is that good?
It is. Actually, the second season is a lot better than the first.
Right. That says something. Most second seasons aren't better, like Preacher.
Like the first season was kind of slow. It was interesting, but it was kind of slow. And they definitely ramped things up in the second season. The third season looked like it's going to be fucking trippy.
Well, I'm glad we weren't waiting for our Game of Thrones podcast to make us famous, because by the time it ever comes out, I might be dead.
Yeah, I mean, they're saying now it won't be at least until after May of next year.
Yeah, I just heard late summer today.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's like another year.
Pretty much.
I can't wait that long.
Seriously,
I need to know.
Yeah, I mean, since it's going to be like a decade before we get the last book, I kind of want to know how the story's going to end.
I have a theory. Melisandre will give birth to Joffrey 2.0.
He's going to find some Joffrey blood somewhere and make a Joffrey smoke demon.
The tainted incestuous seed of Dany and Jon Snow will be known as Joffrey 2. That'd be great.
That'd be fun.
No, it won't. I can't wait to watch that. I really can't.
No, I'm looking forward to that final season.
Like, it's just going to be so great when everybody's on the same, what the fuck is going to happen next page.
Well, we've been that way for the last, 2 seasons.
Yeah, I know, but there's still, I still feel like the book people were ahead. Now
they were for a while, yeah.
Now,
but especially like this last season, we knew nothing. It was all off book.
Once there became a dragon walker, it's all new territory.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us for the season of Preacher. We done.
This is true.
We're going to take a little break. We'll be back in October for Where's Carl? And
maybe a couple of weeks before that, do some random.
Yeah. We'll get something in before that. We'll do a little catch up on Walking Dead for sure, and we'll do something before that. We'll start again in October. How's that?
Sounds good.
All right. Well, hey, until October, love many, trust few, and do harm to no one. We'll talk to you guys.